Hey mech warriors, welcome to Bad Ben's Battletech. I'm Bad Ben. And today I'm going to make a video as an add-on to my previous series about how to build a solar system by hand. What I've done is I've programmed a whole Excel sheet here with pretty much everything that you need to build a solar system without doing a whole bunch of math. It's a lot bigger. It's different than, you know, what I had in the rest of the series. Um, it's a lot more complicated. There's a lot more math. But it allows me to build a solar system in about 15 minutes rather than like an hour and a half or so. And so here, I thought I would take you through it, and I'll put a link to a Dropbox or something like that where you can download this for yourself. Um, as a warning, I'm using LibreOffice Calc here, not Excel. I don't like Excel. I've never really used Excel, to be honest. I'm sure it's a fine program. Maybe it's even better than this one. I really don't know. But I'm doing this in LibreOffice Calc, and I'm going to save this as a file for LibreOffice Calc. It's a free program, and you can just go and download it from the internet. I suggest it. It works really, really well. I believe you can open this just in Excel if you want to. If you have Excel, I think you can still open this file. You may have to turn on editing mode. Actually, for anybody downloading this, you may have to turn on editing mode. I don't know how that works on every platform, but it's fairly straightforward, and if you don't know, you can go and Google it and figure it out. Anyways, so yes, we will be using this spreadsheet today to build a solar system, and I'm doing it the same way as usual. I have my book open here beside me. If you want to do this, you're even with all of this whole spreadsheet, you're still going to have to go by the book because mainly because of the table, the primary solar stats table is it's too big. I'm not showing it here, and there's a lot of information. You need all this information. So I can get right to it, and the very first thing that I need to do is roll for my spectral class, and I'll be rolling on the life-friendly column of the primary generation table on page 99 of campaign operations. So roll 2d6. I got an 8, that's a G, and roll 1d6 on the stellar subtype. I got a 4. It's going to be a 6. So I get a G6 star. And I come over into primary solar stats table. I find where it says G6V. All of them say V at the end for 5 in Roman numerals. And I'm just going to start typing in my information here. So what did I say? G6V is what I got. I rolled a 4. Yeah, it's a G6 star. The charge time is going to be 187 hours. Transit time is 7.0101 days. Safe jump distance 900 260 278. 0.9 will be the mass. And you can already see um, up here, all of the distance for every orbital slot, whether there will be a planet there or not, is already calculated. All you need to calculate this number is that number. So that's already done. What am I? 0.9 for luminosity. 0.79 for luminosity. 0.95 for the radius. 5340. 5340 is the temperature. And 13013. 13013 point, what is it? 49 is the lifetime in million years. A lot of these numbers actually are completely unnecessary. Like they're not used for any other calculation, but it's nice to have it anyways. Then the lifetime habitability modifier, mine is 0. If you are copying all this information from the PDF version of campaign operations, and you copy the habitability modifier and it has a minus, which many of them do, so a lot of them have -1, -2, -3, it goes up. If you copy that number and paste it in here, it's not going to work. It doesn't recognize that minus as a minus, so you just have to type in here -1, -2, -3, whatever your habitability modifier is. If it's a 0, it doesn't really matter. But that's important. That's something I noticed. You have to write in minus whatever your habitability modifier happens to be. Okay, so now I come on to the next continued table, and I look for here the distance from the star. And that of the inner, okay, yeah, no, 0.52 is the habitability zone inner edge in astronomical units. The outer edge is 1.07. There, and now I have all the information that I need up here to start rolling my object types. And you can see here the life zone. A 0 tells you, a 0 or a 1 tells you whether or not it is in the life zone. And as you can see here, I have 2. So it measures these numbers against these numbers. And if you're too far in, then you're not. If you're too far out, then you're not. These two happen to be in the life zone of the planet, meaning I can get a habitable planet. And I'm going to get a habitable planet. I'll get 2 habitable planets. Normally you roll on the object table type to see if planet is, to see what is going to go into this column here. I'm not going to do that because I just want a good spread of everything. I don't want it to be random. So I'm going to I'll just start with a dwarf terrestrial. And here, this brings me to the first point. When you are writing these in here, it needs to be the full word: dwarf, terrestrial, giant, terrestrial, terrestrial, what have you. And it needs to be written properly with capitalism. Both words need to be capitalized. That has, there's a lot of cells back here that check on what kind of planet it is to apply modifiers to this and that. And if it's not written properly, it's not going to recognize it, and you're not going to get the proper modifiers. So we're going to do, for this one, terrestrial. For this one, I'm going to do a giant terrestrial. And we'll see how we can make a giant terrestrial habitable if everything lines up, which it wouldn't normally, not ever. in doing this, I've realized it's very, very unlikely, using all the rolls normally, to get a habitable planet. Um, I've done 14 of these, at least 15, and I don't know if I've ever just naturally rolled a habitable planet. There's so many modifiers, that so many things that keep you from doing. A lot of the stars have habitability modifiers of more than +4, and that automatically means no planet here will be habitable. So it's very rare, and I'm just going to fudge the numbers and make sure that these two are habitable, so that I can later put all their information, roll all their information down in these two boxes. There are two boxes for habitable planet surveys, because I'm fairly certain 2 habitable planets is the most you can ever actually get on if you do it right by the numbers. If there's never going to be more than 2 planets in the life zone of the star. I think. I haven't tested every single star type, but from what I've seen, this is the most you usually ever get. Anyways, moving on. Here I'll put a gas giant. Here I'll put an asteroid belt. This one can be an ice giant. Do I have everything? There's also empty. So there's asteroid belt, dwarf terrestrial, terrestrial giant, terrestrial gas giant, ice giant. Yeah, actually, you know what? Just for the sake of it, just so that we have everything, so that I can explain this too, I'll leave this one I rolled empty, so that one's empty. This one's going to be an ice giant. And I say this because if it's empty, it's important that this field stays empty, that you don't write empty in it, because there's also cells back there that read this field to see whether it has anything written in it whatsoever. And if it says empty, it will say, yeah, there's something in that field. It wants to know if it's truly empty, in which case, yeah, it can write the appropriate thing. So we've rolled for all of our types. Now we have to roll for diameter. I've set this spreadsheet up to do a lot of the math. I haven't set it up to do all of the math. For example, right here with diameter, when you're rolling on the object type table, the diameter is going to need a little bit of math involved. It's not complicated, but for rolling for density, certain planet types need you to take one dice roll, for example, to the power of 0.75, which that you're going to need a calculator for that. So, but for rolling for density, first of all, first one is a dwarf terrestrial. No, I'm first rolling for diameter. Sorry, dwarf terrestrial. That's 3d6. I got 5 times 100 plus 400. Oh, that's a small planet, 900 kilometers in diameter. Terrestrial is going to be 2d6. I got 10, so that's 10,000 plus 12,500. That's 12,500. Rolling for the giant terrestrial, I got 5, and that's going to be 5 times 1,000. 5,000 is going to be 17,500. Actually, oh, wrong field. I don't want it to be 7. I'm going to roll that again. I'm going to get a 2. So 2,000 plus, so it's going to be 14,500. I'm going to do that because if it's not that, it's if it's too big, it's probably has more modifiers on its habitability roll, I think, and most likely won't be, and I want it to be habitable. Gas giant. For the diameter of a gas giant, take 2d6. Oh, I got a 12. So that's 120,000. That's going to be 170,000 kilometers in diameter. Asteroid belt doesn't have a diameter. We skip that. Empty doesn't have a diameter. We skip that. Ice giant is 1d6. I got a 4 times 5,000. 4 times 5,000 is 20,000 plus 25,000 is 45,000 kilometers in diameter. Next, we roll for the density, and the density of a dwarf terrestrial is so easy. It's 1d6, and I got a 4. And as you can see, gravity, escape velocity modifier is already calculated. Life zone position modifier is also already calculated. For both these two planets, which are in the life zone. Other ones that aren't going to be calculated. So the density of a terrestrial is annoying. It's, what do I get? I got a 4, so I'm going to take 4 to the power of 0.75 equals that, plus 2.5 equals 5.32. This is actually a very Earth-like planet. That's close to the density of Earth. That's close to the diameter. For the giant terrestrial, the density is 1d6 plus 2. Pretty easy. I got a 4. I'm not going to get... It would be a 6. I rolled a 4, but now I rolled a 3. Which is... No, I rolled a 2, which is going to give me a density of 4. I want it to be a little less dense. If I want it to be habitable, you're going to have to fudge these numbers probably, because then you have this escape velocity modifier, and you want that to be as close to 1 as possible for a lot of things. That just means it's close to Earth. See this one? That one's never going to be able to hold an atmosphere. Gas giant, the density is 2d6. I got a 7, which gives me 0.7 plus 0.5 gives me a density of 0.12. These are both empty. Density of ice giant, I got a 7. Divided by 10 gives me 0.7 plus 1 is 1.7. Density for that is finished. There is a calculation for density of asteroid belt, and you can do it, but it's not necessary for anything. No calculations use it, because asteroid belts, and that would be like, what, an average density? If you want to go visit any of the dwarf terrestrials your asteroid belt might have, then you can roll for its density and diameter then, and you get gravity and all that if you want that. So this is all done. That's all. Oh no, all done. What am I talking about? Day length. This is actually completely unnecessary. Also, no other calculation uses this. This is only because you want day length. So for dwarf terrestrial, it's 3d6, and I got 7 plus 12 gives me 19-hour day for that. 3D same thing for the Earth. I got 15 plus 12 is 27. And this could be anything. This is not, it doesn't have to be close to 24. This isn't going to change your habitability modifier whatsoever. Giant terrestrial day length is 4d6. And that's 4 plus, that's 8. 8-hour day length for that giant terrestrial. Gas giant, same roll, 4d6. We got 16-hour days. And the ice giant has a 6 8-9 hour day. And that's all the information for all your object types. After that, we have gravity automatically calculated for all the planet. You have the escape velocity of each planet. When you get a really low escape velocity like that, it's going to change your atmospheric pressure. We have an escape velocity modifier, which measures how close is this escape velocity to Earth's. So you can see both are quite similar for our habitable planets. And that's going to make it easier to make these planets habitable later. Otherwise, the habitability roll will just be like, no, sorry, no matter, even if you get a 12. So the next roll that we need to do is the giant terrestrial roll. And that brings us over to this column here, giant terrestrial roll 1d6. And you notice in the column before you have 0 or 1, and that is telling you, is this planet a giant terrestrial? And this is important to know what kind of atmosphere your giant terrestrial gets. If it's a 6, it will have an atmosphere like a terrestrial planet and then therefore be habitable. If you don't roll a 6 on a 1d6, so a 5 out of 6 chance, it's going to get an atmosphere like a gas giant and will not be habitable. It's impossible. So if you want to roll it for real, then you roll it and you type the number in here. As I said, I want to try to make this giant terrestrial habitable, so this has to be a 6. If I don't type a 6 here, it's simply not going to be habitable. And when I typed a 6 here, you see a 6 appeared here. Now, this field is your roll for your atmospheric pressure, and you're only going to do it for planets that have a 6 here, right? So if you typed a 5 here, and you roll here, I don't really know exactly right now, but I'm pretty sure these will check on this field to make sure that it's a 6. And if it's not a 6, it's not going to work. And if not these fields, ones later on. But I'm pretty sure that's how it works. It's pretty complicated, and I've been working on this thing for 3 days, and I can't really remember how all of these things work. As you can see here, our modified roll is already at a -2 for this planet. I don't really know why, but it's there for a reason. Because I would say this is closer than the life zone to the planet, and therefore it gets a -2 on its roll for atmospheric pressure. Yeah, that's what it's going to be. The rest get 0, but these 3 are the only 3 that are going to get a roll at all. If it says NA here in this field, in the O field, then you need no roll here whatsoever. And it's just a simple 2d6 roll. And I'm going to roll for the first one is going to be an 8. And as you can see, it got a roll of an 8 gave me a modified roll of still -2. I think this is just too small and too close to the planet to ever get any kind of atmosphere. If I put in, actually, let's say I got a 12, it's still, then the modified roll comes to -1. But this is being measured against my escape velocity modifier, and that's 0.06. So no matter what roll, I would have to get like a 53. Let's see. If I got a 53, if I rolled 2d6 and got a 53, it would still have a vacuum. That's how cool this whole system is, how all of these modifiers work and they tie in together. It says, like, it knows there's no way this planet's ever going to have an atmosphere. What did I roll? I rolled an 8. So it doesn't matter, doesn't have an atmosphere. we'll roll 2d6, and this time I got a 9. And oh, that gives me a high pressure on this planet. That's going to affect my habitability roll modifier. You can already see, since I got a high pressure, therefore it's -1 already. If I get a 7, oh, it's a normal. And my habitability modifiers are 0, 0, 0. So that means you just need a 9 to get for this planet to be habitable. When I roll for this one, let's see if I get a 9. Oh, that's going to be high. And it's going to have modifiers of -2 and -1 for whatever reasons. They're in the book. I want this one to have a normal atmospheric pressure as well. This one still, because it's a giant terrestrial, it gets a -2 for its habitability roll modifier, just because it's a giant terrestrial and there's nothing I can do about it. This one I can roll. I didn't get a 9. But for it to be habitable, according to the book, you need to roll a 9 or better on this table. And so since I want this to be habitable, I roll a 9, and all of a sudden, in this column over here, habitable 1, 0, that 0 became a 1. And since this one has a -2, if I want it to be habitable, I'd have to roll an 11. If I rolled 10, it's still uninhabitable. Because the modified roll needs to come out to 9 at least. And I want this to be habitable. And the book says that's totally fine. Fudge the rolls if you want a habitable planet. And I'm telling you, you're not going to find one if you just go purely by the numbers. If you just go looking for systems, it's really likely that you'll have no terrestrial planets in your habitable zone whatsoever. And the chance of actually getting a giant terrestrial to be habitable is nearly impossible. Those numbers always have to just be fudged. So now we know which planets are habitable. Oh, this one is and that one is, because I fudged the numbers, but whatever. That brings us to the end of this nice blue chart, and that's all the information that we really need to know about our planets, all nicely kept in this big blue table. Nice and quick. That brings us to the asteroids table, and this one is really easy and nice. You're only going to roll on this column if there's a 1 in the column before. If it's a 0, it's not an asteroid belt, and it's not going to matter. And this is just a 1d6 roll. I got a 2. Put it in here, and it's going to calculate already your asteroid population modifier. And then it's going to calculate your dwarf terrestrials, your medium-sized asteroids, and your small asteroids in this field. And it does it all automatically. If you roll 6, you get more. I got 14 dwarf terrestrials. And if you roll in a field that doesn't have any, you get none. Oh, I couldn't roll a 9 anyways, it's 1d6. But if I roll a 4, still you get 0 because this field is 1. So you can only roll on fields where this field is a 1. And so now I know my asteroid population. And that's all this entire orange field is for. This field over here, moons, there is actually no math in any of these, and it is simply a table for you to go and record all of the moons according to the moons table in the campaign operation moon generation table, which is on page 107. And there's simply too many options for me to have put like simple just roll here. And this table would be humongous. It would be ridiculous. I'm not that good at spreadsheets. And there's too many options. So this one you just have to go through, you know what kind of planet you're dealing with. The first one's a dwarf terrestrial. You can see it all the way over here. Dwarf terrestrial, and then you roll for your moons on the moon generation table. I'm not going to do that because the book explains how to do that. I explained how to do that in my video series on how to do it by hand. I'm just going to leave that blank for now. It's pretty self-explanatory. And this is just the field where how many giant moons go in on my dwarf terrestrial, right? And you put the number, I don't know, 1. Probably none. It's a dwarf terrestrial. It's not going to get giant moons. The moon would be bigger than it. You know, and if there's just no moons, then leave it blank. Or, you know, it makes no difference. This field, these fields aren't referenced anywhere. This is just for you to write whatever number of moons according to the runes that you rolled on the moon generation table. Now this great big field here, it's longer than it needs to be. No, not really. There's a lot of modifiers. So these columns here they're just the modified rolls, and this took quite a bit of math to get right, and I probably should have just left it like the moons table and you can just go do it yourself, but I didn't. And I see now that we have actually no eligible planets. Here, this is uninhabitable atmospheres. That's what the A is for. Uninhabitable atmospheres eligibility. And so it's testing to see if any of my planets are terrestrials with an atmosphere but outside the life zone, so not a breathable atmosphere. And it's testing to see any giant terrestrials that are not habitable but have an atmosphere like a terrestrial. So that's what this is testing for. And I don't have any of that in this field, but I'll change that so that I can show you how all this works. And the only thing I need to do that is change this roll from an 11 to a 10. And then this habitable, it's going to say 0. No, this isn't habitable. It has an atmosphere with normal pressure. Actually, I'll change that too, make it a little more interesting. We'll give it a high atmospheric pressure. That's going to change some of the rolls on the atmosphere rolling table. And now that this is a not habitable world, come all the way back here, and we see it's, why is that a 5? That should not be a 5, that should be a 6. Ah! Why is there a 5 there? That should be a 6. And that should have been a 5. I'm dumb. I typed the number 6 in here, and that erased the equation that was in here before. Which is dumb. I hope if I just copy this and paste it, it'll work normally. You got to be a little careful with this spreadsheet. You know, if you accidentally erase these calculations, often I got to fix this. Often you can just copy the one before it and bring it down. Sometimes you can't. It would need changes in which cells it references, because sometimes it's not referencing. If you copy it and bring it down and paste it here, it's going to change the cells that this one was referencing by one cell down. And sometimes that's not needed. I could have done that better if I had written all of these properly with Um, the money symbol's in the right spot, but I didn't know that I could do that as I was writing this, and I did it all by hand. Anyways, so come back here. This was the whole point. Uninhabitable atmosphere eligibility. Only if it has a 6 are they eligible. And this knows what is in this field, and so I can roll here and nothing will happen. This is, you have to roll in the fields that say roll, and there's uninhabitable atmosphere, roll 1, roll 2, roll 3. Most times that's all you're going to do. Only if you roll an 11 or a 12 will you either roll here or here. This is how I understand the uninhabitable world's atmosphere table. The the rules for it are a little obscure, I would say. It seems you will always have a trace element. If you roll an 11 or 12 on your trace element here, you get a second trace element. If you roll an 11, you should roll again here and once more on this second trace table. If you roll a 12 in this field, you should roll one more here, ignoring 11s or 12s, and one time here on this field for special traces. I'll show you, for example. Come over here. We come into the roll field next to the 6. It's the only one that will work. And this is a 2d6 roll. I got a 4. And it's going to tell me, okay, the base is ammonia. Come here, roll 2d6. I don't want a second 4. Although, no, I'll put in, I got a 4. And that will tell me, oh, it's also ammonia. I don't want that. I'll fudge them. I'll roll again. What do I get? I got a 6. Also ammonia. What do I need to get something other than ammonia? Nitrogen. There we go. Look. Then I come over here on roll 3. Always roll on this table. And I got a 6. And that gives me a trace element of argon. But let's pretend I didn't get 6. Let's pretend I got an 11. And it says roll TR, meaning trace, 2 times. That means you roll again here, rolling, ignoring 11 or 12, and then one more time here. It basically means if you get an 11, this planet has 2 trace elements. I think that's how the book means to explain it. That's how this table works. Actually, I think you can just roll for all of them if you wanted to. But according to the book, you would roll again here. So let's say I rolled an 8, and then over here I would roll 7. And that would tell me, okay, it has traces of water vapor and traces of methane. If you roll here a 12, it's going to say roll trace and special trace. So that would mean I'd roll again here, and let's say I got a 7, methane here. I wouldn't roll again here if I got a 12 on this table first. This table doesn't care what you do. It's just this is how the book does it. And then I would roll here, and that would give me nitric acid. Oh, and that brings up the last field on this, and it tells you if the atmosphere is going to be caustic or not, and that's dependent on your traces. A lot of the special traces are caustic. Phosphine is not caustic. What else do we have? Hydrogen peroxide is caustic, and actually, caustic atmospheres have rules in some book somewhere. I can't remember about what how that modifies the play. I believe if it has a caustic atmosphere and you take a head hit to your mech that damages your mech warrior takes 2 damage instead. And there's also breach rules. If your cockpit is breached, then your mech warrior is instantly dead because the atmosphere is caustic and completely deadly. Over here, this column is the percent, and it tells you how to roll. It's 2d6 divided by 2. So you roll 2 dice. I got a 7, which would give me 7. It would give me 3.5, and that will automatically become 3.5%. Here, it's going to be the same kind of roll, a 2d6. I got 5, so that's going to be 2.5%. So this planet has an atmosphere with 2.5% methane and 3.5% hydrogen peroxide. This roll here is 5d6, and you just roll everything together. I got 12, 14, 19. So 19% of this atmosphere is nitrogen, and that is automatically going to tell you how much of the atmosphere is ammonia, how much is the base. This is just calculating, it's just minusing these numbers from 100%, and then telling you how much it is here. And that's all you have to do on this table. This one is already done. If you have more planets that are eligible, then you can do it for several planets. I don't. But it doesn't really matter. I didn't really want this. I wanted that giant terrestrial actually to be habitable, and I'll just go make it habitable. Say I got an 11 on this roll. Oh, I can't get an 11 now because I get an extra -1 on the habitability modifier because it has a high pressure atmosphere. Can I give it a low pressure atmosphere? If I got a 2. Why is it always high? It's always going to have a high pressure atmosphere? The modified roll is 10? I did it again. I just wrote a 10. I don't know why I would do such a thing. Let's see if I can just fix that real quick. Oh, I think that works. If I give it a 7 now, a 7 comes out low. 10 comes out normal. There. So a lot of this stuff is interconnected, as you can see, The habitability roll modifier. Now, since I rolled an 11 on this field, the habitability roll, it is habitable. And if I come back here, it says it's not. This is 0 instead of a 6, and you can see it doesn't say ammonia, carbon dioxide, or whatever these were. It's all Na. So because this planet is habitable, it doesn't have some weird atmosphere. It has an atmosphere that's pretty much like Earth. So I can simply remove all this information. And that brings us down to the habitable planet survey. And this is pretty straightforward. This is super duper easy. The only thing you need to do is here where it says orbital slot, in the result. What orbital slot is your habitable world in? My two are in orbital slots 2 and 3. So this one will be 2, and it knows now which planet I'm talking about. This one is going to be 3. Wait, what did I say? I put in a 9. It's going to be 3, and it knows it's a giant terrestrial. It's already going to have a whole bunch of... It's going to say, oh, there's 30% water, it's toxic, very high, and it only has microbes, because there's no rolls here. Here, these are the fields you need to roll for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where it says no roll, don't roll there. Where it says continents 1d6, roll 1d6. Otherwise, it's going to be 2d6. Put the roll there. 6. Oh, change my water to 10%. Atmosphere, I'll roll. Oh, that would be a terrible atmosphere. I roll 7, it's going to be breathable. If I rolled too low, like if I rolled a 3, you'd get a tainted atmosphere. And sometimes, depending on what kind of planet is habitable, it's hard to get anything other than a toxic or tainted atmosphere, depending on if it. Yeah, I really don't remember. Actually, no, wait. The only thing that changes this is whether it's a giant terrestrial. That'll make the atmosphere on this different. But if I just say it's a 7. The modified, it has no modifiers, it's just going to display 7. This is another 2d6, and I got a 9. This tells me the temperature. Oh, it's hot. It's a hot planet. 2d6 for this one is 5. And oh, I have amphibians. This is a 1d6 roll. It tells you put in a 6 here. And it tells me I have 3 continents. It's modifying that for different stuff. These two, yeah, this modifies it. There's no modifier here, but it does get modified. It's actually quite common that if you put a 6 here, there will be 6 here and then a 6 here. If there's no modifiers that actually, but it's checking on your planet and saying what the modifiers are. So we do the same thing here. Surface water, we get a 4. It's got 50% surface water. And that's interesting because I rolled a 6 for the surface water here, but it only has 10% because of the modifiers for the planet. This being a bigger planet, I roll 4, it got modified to a 6, which gives me 50%. Let's see what I get here. Oh, I only got a 3. A 3 gives me a toxic atmosphere. A 12? 12 would give me a breathable atmosphere. You can have a habitable planet with a toxic atmosphere. It just means anytime you go outside, you need like a full spacesuit essentially, which isn't super habitable. But I guess people live in domes on toxic worlds. Tainted is more like it's polluted, and you can live there. Anyways, it's no big deal. Doesn't matter. I got a 7 for the temperature. Oh, it's nice and medium heat, highest life form. I got a 7, and that gives me reptiles. So there's reptiles here. 1d6 for the continents. 4. Yeah, see here, none of the modifiers affect this planet. It just has 4 continents. Then we have these fields here, terrain. You can write in whatever you want. So what is it? It's got 50% water, and it's medium. It's pretty normal. I don't know. It has forests and jungle and desert and Arctic. Honestly, that's a pretty standard planet. Maybe it would be a little more arid because it has less water than Earth does. So maybe a little more jungle, whatever. It doesn't matter. Um, what's this one? Oh, this one only has 10% surface water and the temperature high. This is like dune. This is going to be desert and savanna and plains. It will have some jungle and so on. You'll read the book about it. This is, you can write whatever you want. You can say they have crystal forests and trees made out of bumblebees or whatever you want. Doesn't matter. Special features. Special features is a whole table of its own in the book. And it has its own special rules, and you can go and read it and roll for any special features you want on this. I didn't put any math to roll this. It's just straightforward. Like, I don't even know if there's any modifiers. I think you have to roll an 8 or something to see if a planet gets a special feature, and then you roll just on the table. I don't really remember. You got to read the section. It's pretty easy. And that's the end. If I rolled a special feature here, you can write it. What do they have? If I did it, I think I'd have to roll 2d6. I got a 9. And then I roll 4, and that gives me intense volcanic activity. Intense volcanic activity. Actually, there might be like some modifiers on this table. I really don't know, but it's not all that important. And it means nothing. It's just for gameplay. Like, then, you want to play on this planet, then maybe a volcano erupts every once in a while, and there's earthquakes more often. And if I rolled for a special feature on this one, I rolled a 6, it wouldn't get a special feature. Roll again, I got 11, it gets a special feature. Let's see, 9, Starleague facility and abandoned. Whoa, Starleague facility abandoned. Yeah, and then you can send in your lands to see if there's anything recoverable in the Starleague facility or whatever, and play that if you feel like it. Really not that important. That's everything there is to do in this solar system that I made right now. The only things I haven't done is the giant moons, any moons. Filled out this table. It's just in the book, and you just read it, and then you just put the numbers where they go. No math involved, and say if it has rings or not. And that brings me to the end. Everything is finished in my nice spreadsheet, and it has done me all the math. So it was done relatively quickly. I can do it a lot faster if I'm not talking about it and explaining it the whole time, obviously. If I've tried this, I've done it a whole bunch of times, checking for bugs. And, by the way, there might be a bug. I hope there's no bugs. I've tested it quite a lot. It could be that there's a bug somewhere, and I don't see it, and I haven't noticed it. If you do, you can message me and tell me about it, and then I can fix it. That would be really cool. As far as I can tell, it works pretty well. So, download the file if you feel like it. I hope it works for you, and that you understood all of this and can do it yourself now. If you didn't, go and rewatch the video, I guess. But it's fairly self-explanatory. If you have to fill in the diameter, you have to fill in the density, you have to fill in the day length. Those are the only 3 things here, and then all of these numbers are going to be filled out for you. The next thing is you need to roll here 1d6 for the giant terrestrial. Find out what kind of atmosphere, whether it's eligible to have an atmosphere at all. This one, for example, isn't eligible. It is way too small and too close to the planet. The next thing you do is if you have eligible planets, a terrestrial in the life zone or a giant terrestrial with an atmosphere like a terrestrial in the life zone, you put in your roll here. It must be a 9 for this number, the habitable roll, to be a 1. And it's that matters, I think, a little when you go and fill out this sheet. If it has I think, I'm fairly certain, I'll tell you this, I'm fairly certain you can put anything in here, but if I put, for example, here, so the ice giant, I want to make the ice giant habitable. There's some things that are going to be a problem because it is not habitable. This isn't going to work. The mod roll is 6. I think no matter what I put in here, I could put a 12, and it's not going to change anything because it's checking whether it's habitable or not, and it's just so you will always have 5%. The atmosphere seems to work. It'll say, oh, that's a nice giant with the highest life form. That probably works. It still works. And the continents, definitely, that's still going to work. So you can take any planet you want and say, this is habitable just because I want it to be, just because I say it is, even though it's way outside the life zone and it's an ice giant. Who cares? It's your own planet and you do with it what you want. Just saying, if you put that in here, if you want it to be habitable, put it in the life zone, and then everything's going to work fine. This will work. And here is a problem. This life zone modifier, if that's a 0, and that's going to be a 0 for any planet that isn't in the life zone. But this one is, and so it gets a life zone modifier of 0.2 and an escape velocity modifier. Yeah, so, and then that's pretty much the end of the sheet. It doesn't take long. Start by copying all the information. This should all be, the same as it's ordered. So you do this one first. This is the next number in the book. That's the next number in the book. That's the next number in the book. These two are on a different, that's on the continued table. You want the inner life zone edge and the outer life zone edge in astronomical units, right? Those are important. This, don't touch this. This is telling you how wide your life zone is, and that's important for the life zone modifier. For example, it's taking into account. A lot of these things are pretty long. Yeah. Anyways, that brings me to the end. I could probably still talk about this forever, but I hope you understand it. I hope if you download it and use it, you like it. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.